All right, guys. So I have some pretty major updates coming out of Israel, Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, the Middle East in general. So we're just going to go ahead and hop into it here, starting off with the finance minister in Israel, this psychopath here, Bezalel Smotrich, who recently attended the Judea and Samaria Council Conference, where he said, quote, "Taking over Gaza isn't taboo. I'm all in. We can control Gaza and cut its population in half through voluntary migration within 2 years." He also said, as a part of the same conference, quote, "Nothing moves, and what moves is dead. That's it." So it's a bizarre situation, at least here in the United States, where we have to continue pretending like the accusation that Israel intends on ethnically cleansing the West Bank and ethnically cleansing and continuing the genocide in Gaza is some sort of a radical position. And all the while, as US politicians and our mainstream media pretend as if it's a wild anti Semitic accusation that Israel is committing genocide, at the same time, we have Israeli politicians who are openly saying things like this, right? This is not some random Israeli citizen. This is the finance minister. This is a core member of Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition, okay? And he's saying nothing moves, and what does move is dead. That's it. Getting into the indiscriminate targeting of innocent civilians in Gaza. And then we also have the appearance at the Judea and Samaria Council Conference. What do you guys think that means? When they refer to Judea and Samaria, what they're talking about there is the West Bank, right? Under Palestinian control, or under international law, what is designated as Palestinian territory. And when he refers to it as Judea and Samaria, he's making a pretty explicit claim that the Israeli government has a right to settle, to displace the Palestinian population there as a part of reclaiming what they view as their biblical homeland of Judea and Samaria. That's what this conference is. And he makes no qualms about it, not only in his advocating of the ethnic cleansing in the West Bank, but also in Gaza. I mean, he literally says here, we can cut the population of Gaza in half. In half. What is this other than ethnic cleansing? What is this other than genocide at this point? There shouldn't be any questions about this far into it. When we see what Israeli politicians, when we see what top Israeli military officials and IDF soldiers say, when we see the actions on the ground in the West Bank and Gaza, at this point, there should be no two ways about this. This is one of the most obvious genocides in world history, right? Here we have just another example of them sort of saying the quiet part out loud and then nothing really coming of it, right? This is just like an average Tuesday in Israel that one of their top ministers would say something like this. This should be global outrage as a response to this kind of a statement. This should be the U.S. cutting off weapons to Israel as a result of this, because they're openly and explicitly claiming that their goal is to cut the population of roughly 2 million inside of Gaza in half. That's 1 million people, guys. Now, in the meantime, I brought up this story before, but we also have, obviously, the Trump administration coming in January of 2025. He's putting together his administration. He's putting together his top cabinet positions as we speak. One of the things that we know that he has promised to do when he takes office is to lift all restrictions on Israeli military shipments, is the implication there, on his first day in office. Keep in mind that this is the same Donald Trump who, during his first administration, moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, who pushed forward with the Abraham Accords to sweep Palestinians under the rug as a part of a military or security alliance between Israel and other U.S.-backed monarchies in the Middle East. This is the same Trump administration that took tens of millions of dollars from Sheldon Adelson during his first run, and then in his second run or third run here now in 2024, took $100 million from Miriam Adelson, where the promise was essentially to allow Israel to fully annex the West Bank. We know exactly who Trump is. I mean, it's deeply ironic that him and many of his supporters claim that he is America first, when it seems pretty clear that according to his cabinet pick so far, it's not America first, right? Because what Israel is and has been doing is not in the best interests of Americans. It's not even necessarily in the best interests of Israelis. But Trump's administration picks have made it explicitly clear that there are two qualifying factors to be a part of his next administration, and that is loyalty to him as an individual, and then loyalty to Israel. Those are the two main qualifications for the Trump administration. And to back that up, his pick for ambassador to Israel is Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee. Just a reminder, in terms of some of the things that he has said, he is decisively against a two-state solution. Now, keep in mind, like, the Biden administration pretends like they are in favor of a two-state solution, and then they continue to allow Israel to engage in their ongoing, slow-rolling ethnic cleansing in the West Bank, where they are displacing Palestinians and fragmenting them into a million different enclaves, such that a two-state solution is not even really logistically or feasibly possible, right? Because there would be no contiguous Palestinian state at this point because of what Israel has been doing. But you still have that veneer from the Biden administration of, well, we theoretically support a two-state solution, right? Biden's ambassador is dropping all of those pretenses. He is openly against the prospects of a two-state solution. So if you're against a two-state solution, there are two other options that are on the table. Option number one is a one-state solution, where everybody, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of, religion, has full, equal, democratic, and civil rights. That's one solution. And the other solution is the track that we are currently on, which is allowing Israel to just fully ethnically cleanse Palestinians. That is the route that the Trump administration is on. That's the route that they support, right? And Mike Huckabee is just another example of that. Now, some other things. I mean, he once compared the Iran nuclear deal to the Holocaust. To the Holocaust. He says that the Iran nuclear deal that was signed under Obama and that Trump then proceeded to rip up under his first term is marching Israelis to the door of the oven. This is what he said about the Iran nuclear deal. Obviously, we've also covered before how he doesn't accept Palestinians as a term, as a thing that exists. He does not believe, essentially, in the existence of Palestinians. So this is the guy who Trump is appointing to be his ambassador to Israel, to give you a little bit of a glimpse in terms of what his priorities are. Now, we move on, because we also have this piece here that I saw floating around on CNN's TikTok, where they get into the ongoing ethnic cleansing in the West Bank, what this looks like on the ground. You can see some of the bulldozers here, or the diggers in the background, literally destroying Palestinians' lives, their livelihoods, right in front of us, right? And this is in front of Western journalists here. So let's go ahead and watch this little CNN piece on the latest in the West Bank.
In the occupied West Bank villages around here, they call this silent annexation. On the fringes of the West Bank Palestinian village Badallah, Israeli diggers are gouging out a new barrier through the middle of Palestinian farms on land they say is a security risk. What he's saying is this document is the official document informing him that he has to be off this land by 9 a.m. on the 4th of December. Otherwise, all of this, he loses it. He's been told his buildings are unlicensed. Khalid is 60 years old, heartbroken. I don't know how to describe my feelings to you, he says. This is my livelihood. My children rely on it. Then someone comes along and takes it away. You can't argue with them. We have no power. They have the power. Little by little, Palestinians losing land to Israeli settlement expansion. And they're worried, they say, that when President-elect Donald Trump gets in office, and if his pick for US Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, gets installed, that they think that this could accelerate, because they believe Huckabee is biased towards the Israeli government and its settlement ideas.
There is no such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria.
And then there's the other view from inside the Jewish settlements here in the West Bank. They think of themselves as communities. They think that Mike Huckabee will actually help them realize their aspirations to have the control over the whole of the West Bank. Yishai Fleischer, an activist and settler, has met with Huckabee many times.
We're still fighting a war of liberation for that piece of land.
And is Huckabee going to be helpful in that liberation?
I think he will be. He happens to be a great friend of Israel and of the kind of Israel that I represent.
There has never been a war of liberation, a movement of liberation that requires the displacement violently of the native inhabitants of any given territory. This is not a movement of liberation. It's a movement of conquest. It's a settler colonial ideology of Zionism that is at play here. Let's make no two ways about this, right? It's very clear what's going on here. There's a reason why Mike Huckabee refers to it as Judea and Samaria. He believes that Israel has a biblical claim to this land that Palestinians have been living on generation after generation after generation after generation, and that they have a right to forcefully displace the Palestinians who are living there in order to form their own settlements. And they view this as their own righteous cause. And the U.S. is going along with this. I mean, there's sort of a deep historical through line there, or an irony there, of the origins of the United States as a settler colonial project as well, right? And how we handled the Native Americans in this country as well, and did a genocide and a displacement systematically of Native Americans in this country. There's a reason why there's a through line there between the establishment of the United States and the establishment of Israel. It's very similar when you think about it. And this to the U.S. government, this to the incoming Trump administration, this to the Israeli government are fully normalized. This is viewed as standard operating procedure, right? Now, we also have some updates here out of Lebanon at the same time, because there is reportedly, according to the Israeli government, according to the Biden administration as of now, a potential temporary ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah at the moment. So the basic contours of this are kind of confusing to me, to be honest. I mean, they say here from the Associated Press that the deal calls for a 2-month initial halt in fighting and would require Hezbollah to end its armed presence in a broad swath of southern Lebanon, while Israeli troops would return to their side of the border, but implementation remains a major question mark. So I went and I watched this 10-minute statement here from Benjamin Netanyahu himself, where he describes how Israel has been victorious in Gaza and they've been victorious in Lebanon, and here are the reasons why we support this temporary ceasefire. And effectively what it looks like is he gave 3 main reasons for why Israel supports this ceasefire. Reason number 1, that they want to reorient towards potentially confronting Iran. Reason number 2, they need time to rearm and to stockpile their weaponry because they've been running low recently. Obviously, the incoming Trump administration is going to help a lot with that, given that they're removing all of the restrictions on any sort of Israeli weaponry. So they want to confront Iran, they want to restock, resupply, and the third reason is that they want to ramp up the genocide in Gaza. So there was another, point that was made here by Omar Badr that I think was true, which is basically that the main reason that it seems like there is an immediate ceasefire on the horizon, assuming that Israel doesn't just immediately back out of this or immediately ramp up as a result of this, but the main reason that there is able to be a ceasefire this quickly relative to what's been happening in Gaza is because Hezbollah has the ability to fight back. Hezbollah has the ability to strike significant damage onto Israel, right? So there's much more of an incentive for them to strike this sort of a deal. So we also have this clip here that was posted by Ken Klippenstein of Senator Van Hollen, who was calling out Joe Biden for his unending, unquestioned support for Israel's genocide, and how this may be coming into a little bit of a contradiction with U.S. law in regards to arming some of our allies. So let's go ahead and listen to Chris Van Hollen here.
President Biden has never called out Prime Minister Netanyahu
Why?
for his obstruction on this, even though those families I met with are calling him out.
Even post-election, why do you think he won't do that?
I really don't know. I just don't know why the President of the United States has not been willing to make more effective use of American leverage to assert his own stated objectives. I mean, he's been ignored on other things too, right? He wants the PA to be the nucleus of governance in a post-war Gaza. He wants a two-state solution. Prime Minister Netanyahu has not only ignored those, he's gone out there and bragged about how he's blocking President Biden's efforts. And yet the blank check just keeps on coming. So what my colleagues and I are saying is, let's just pause these transfers of offensive weapons, certain ones, until the Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government come into compliance with American law. These are American laws on the books.
So, again, it really shouldn't even be controversial at this point. If you're in favor of cutting off weapons to Israel, or as he says here, I guess, pausing weapons to Israel, it doesn't take some sort of a radical anti-Israel position or something like that. It's literally just a matter of following U.S. law. We already have the laws on the books, the Leahy Law, the Foreign Assistance Act, all of these different laws that are already on the books that the Biden administration has been disobeying, that has been violating those laws in order to continue giving a blank check to somebody like Netanyahu. And this is the deep fucked up part of this, the deep irony of this. Somebody like Netanyahu who wanted Biden to lose, who wanted Democrats to lose, so that he could have somebody like Trump in power who will continue to give him the weapons, but then also won't be critical on a rhetorical front towards anything that he is doing to innocent civilians on the ground, right? So you basically have had the Biden administration that has been largely defined by his continued, unending, illegal support for a genocide, and the person who he's sending the weapons to is somebody who despises him, somebody who is actively working against him. I mean, he has been bending over fully, spreading his cheeks for Netanyahu this entire time. He has been humiliated time and time again and has changed absolutely nothing about his policy. So it's just been an embarrassment. It's been a political catastrophe. It's been a moral catastrophe from the Biden administration, the entirety of his handling of the genocide in Gaza, the escalation with Lebanon, the escalation with Iran. And you have some senators like Van Hollen or like Bernie Sanders or a few others who voted to withhold weapons to Israel, but it still remains a fact that a vast majority of the Democratic Party establishment and basically the entirety of the Republican Party are still fervently standing behind this. It does not matter what Israel does. It doesn't matter what international laws that they break. It doesn't matter that the ICC issued arrest warrants for the fucking Prime Minister of Israel, which is a massive step that they've never taken before. It doesn't matter, okay? Humanitarian law, international law are irrelevant. They're irrelevant to the United States of America. We believe that we are above the law and our select chosen few allies are also above the law. So we finish off with this. We also had some media comparisons here, media analysis here, in terms of how the ICC rulings have been covered in Israel versus how they have been covered here in the United States. And I love these comparisons because it's just an amazing insight here. I mean, this is from Haaretz, the Israeli outlet. Their headline is, Netanyahu brought the ICC ruling on himself, and now he's whining about anti-Semitism. Imagine if this was a U.S. headline. This is how we should be covering it, right? But instead, we have this from the Washington Post. In the opinion column, they say the International Criminal Court is not the venue to hold Israel accountable. The ICC is needed to help resolve war crimes in Russia, Sudan, Myanmar. Targeting Israel makes that harder. So basically, enemies of the United States, international law applies to you. Allies of the United States, international law does not apply to you. That's basically what this Washington Post opinion page is saying. And again, it's just amazing that you get this kind of coverage in Israel from top Israeli outlets. Many of these journalists taking great risk unto themselves in order to report things like this, given the censorious nature of the current Israeli government. But they're able to say things like this. Somehow in the United States of America, we're not able to cover it like this. So there you go, guys. I'm sure we'll have more developments over the next couple of days. We have this, pending ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. I guess we'll have to see how that plays out. It seems like the basic through lines of it are, if Hezbollah doesn't arm themselves at all, if they, return past a certain borderline in southern Israel, if, they don't step over any sort of lines that Israel has set for them, and Israel continues to, have control over the military space in Lebanon, then the ceasefire can hold temporarily. How long will that last? I don't know. But I don't have too much confidence in it, to be honest. I think that Israel is going to be looking for any excuse that they can possibly get in order to continue the violence in Lebanon. We still have the ongoing escalation towards a potential war with Iran that is continuing, and we have an outgoing Biden administration that has been fully subservient to whatever Israel has wanted to do over the last couple of years, and yet they are about to be replaced by an incoming Trump administration that is somehow more extreme on this than they have been so far.
Politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying